Nobody asked me where I was going to be in 3 years, so I thought that I would share that information. So my name is Tim Lockey. I'm the CEO of the Human Stack, and I started the Human Stack to help people incorporate the human side of tech. So I focus on culture and the way that humans use technology together instead of just focusing on the tech. I've been working in technology and doing this kind of work since 2010 and really love it. AI is a next level technology. Everybody knows that. I knew it when I tried ChatGPT for the first time, and it's kind of embarrassing. It tells you what a bad dad I am, but I was on a campus tour with my son looking at a college. It was super boring. So I pulled out my phone. I had seen on TikTok that people were talking about this ChatGPT. Impossible to say. I think I called it GDP at the time because I studied economics, so it made more sense to my brain. Anyway, I tried it out and I just put in, give me a poem about bad donor data. I had tried Jasper, I had tried Writer, Copywriter or something, all these different tools that had been out for a while. They were interesting, but not there. ChatGPT gave me this poem on bad donor data, 5 stanzas. It rhymed, cohesive, hilarious, perfect. I shared it on social media. People went rave on it. It was just perfect. And I knew in that moment, I knew this is different. We're in for an upset. That was December 2022. It's now December 2025. So 3 years later, the world is really different when it comes to technology. To put this into perspective, when I first started working in technology, 2002, 2003, back then it was things like building your own file maker that maybe had a web portal or something like that. 2008, I discovered Salesforce. 2010, I started a Salesforce consulting company. In 2019, I looked at the chaos and wreckage of all of these organizations, mostly nonprofits, that I had spun up Salesforce for. They were really struggling to use it effectively, get adoption, and I started asking the question, why is technology so hard to use? What I found was consultants and the industry focus on the technology instead of success. It's kind of obvious when you say it this way. If you could pay for software or if you could pay for success using software, which would you rather pay for? And everybody would rather pay for success. That isn't actually offered as a professional service. And I realized this in 2019. And so I created something called Guidance. And I say that all as a background when it comes to where AI is going to go in the next 3 years. This is one of the first times that you can't just look in the rear view mirror and make assumptions about what the future is going to look like. You could take web services when those started to roll out, and you could look at the way that software had been developed. You could make some general assumptions about that, could make big bets on where it was going to go next, and people did. And all the same questions were asked, right? Like, this is going to lead to cognitive decline. People aren't going to think. Everybody's going to lose their jobs, all this kind of stuff. Like, all of that was happening anytime there's a new technology. AI is different in that it captures people's imagination. And I don't mean it captures technologists' imagination. It is capturing the imagination of everyday normal people that, are pointing their phone at a fridge and asking AI what to make for lunch. It's capturing the imagination of people who have never been able to write a book to go out and write a book. Is capturing the imagination of people who have AD. And for once, they can string together context over a long series of conversations with AI that allows them to be more productive than they've ever been. It's capturing the imagination of executives who are now able to put all meeting transcripts into a location and then ask AI to help make sense out of it. It's really, really interesting technology. But the new capacity in it, the thing that feels so different is people's ability to convert that instantly into applications with almost no background. I'll give you a comparison. People would pay for Salesforce. And this is a really slimy thing that Salesforce did. I think it still does. It will take you 18 months to roll out the product to all of your team. But you had to start paying for everybody's licenses from day one. That is just such a scammy thing. I've never been on board with it. I told Salesforce that at the time and they just said, shut up. But the reason that matters is because the distance between the introduction of that technology and the application or usage of it where it's going to be effective, there's such a long, long process to find that value with that new technology, right? So 18 months, that would be an enterprise rollout on a platform like Salesforce. They're going to say it's 6 weeks, but it's not. It takes a long time. AI, I've seen people and they're non-technical. And instead of leading with the technology, they're leading with curiosity. And I'm seeing people who can manage curiosity make a difference in their world instantly using AI. That's before they get into any of the fancy stuff. That's even on the free version, which, by the way, don't use the free version. And also, when I say AI, I'm only talking about generative AI. If you've got some AI predictive model that's running in the background and doing a bunch of stuff, I don't care. Nobody thinks of that as AI. All we're thinking about when it comes to AI is generative AI that you're talking about in a chat. And people can use that right away. People that are literate with AI, that's people that feel like they know how to go in and have a conversation with it. They know how to take that output. They know enough to be suspicious every time it's saying, oh, that's amazing. You just introduced the most incredible new idea in our chat right now. And they know like, I can't be doing that every single time I have a conversation. And so they're a little bit suspicious. All of that is literate, right? That's AI literacy. Really, like if you're learning a language, literacy is when you're just focusing on the way that the language works, right? AI fluency is when you get past the literacy part and the mechanics are just obvious. You don't have to think about the mechanics anymore. You're just thinking about what am I saying and what output am I getting? How do I use that output in other systems? Nate B. Jones, if you're not following him, go follow him. Nate B. Jones talks about the difference between AI literate and AI fluent as the actual differentiator. People that are AI fluent are 10xing their productivity. People that are AI literate, really, they're not doing that much more than people that are not AI literate. I'm not saying that they aren't finding real value in the conversations in the chats, that they're AI fluent people know how to use different tools, different models, whether that's thinking or instant or pro, or if you're in the Gemini world, whether it's fast or pro, or if you're in the Anthropic, Claude world, Sonnet, Haiku, or Opus, right? So they know that there's these different tools that you should be looking at. They know how to use projects inside of Claude and inside of ChatGPT. They understand what to do with a gem or a custom GPT or a skill in Claude. They know that there are these different tools and they know how to create repeatable processes that are going to save them time. That's what AI fluent looks like. So when it comes to what's going to happen in the next 3 years, you're going to see a widening gap between people that have dug in to learn AI fluency and are using that in their work on a day-to-day basis, and people that are either AI literate or AI illiterate. The gap between those is going to be wider than the gap that used to exist between, data fluent and data literate people. And that matters because the distance to get from AI literate to AI fluent is a significant distance. It's not easy to do that. And what we're seeing over and over is that people are stopping at, decent literacy instead of extending into real fluency. And let me just back up and say for a second, that isn't a moral, there's nothing moral about that. I don't think that people that are AI fluent are better than people that are AI literate or people that are AI illiterate. I don't really care. That's not the point. It's not a morality thing. It's not a better thing. And I'm certainly not here to persuade everybody to go become AI fluent. That's not my job. That's not my point. If you want to be AI fluent, I can help you get there. If you don't want to be AI fluent, I am for you just deciding like, that's not where I'm headed. Totally fine. I'm not here to convince you otherwise. What I will say, though, is people that think that AI literate is as good as being AI fluent, that's where I want to say, if you've already decided you're on the AI bandwagon and you're not really pushing yourself to learn AI fluency levels, that's where I would say there's a problem. That's where I would say you've already decided you're on this train. You really need to accelerate your learning process and your intention on that. And again, that's not a discipline thing. Everybody's busy. We've got to make decisions about what we do with our time. So I'm not saying this is what you should do with your time. That's not my point. But my point is just to say in the next 3 years, it's not about where the tech is going. The tech's going to do incredible things. It won't matter though. What really is going to matter is if people are getting comfortable with where they feel like they should be on this journey about AI. If they feel like they are learning what they should learn, if they're doing the things that they should do, if they are seeing AI actually help them accomplish their mission. And then there's a whole batch of people that are just creating beige content, right? AI slop. And that's because they are AI literate, they don't care about being more, and they want AI to do the thinking for them. I have very little patience for that, right? Like, fine, that's cool. You can do whatever. The cost on that isn't just societal. It's not just what it's going to do to, AI slop being everywhere in the world. It's much more about you're not developing your own thinking, right? That is actually really important. Maybe it's like this. If I were to compare it to the past, in a pre-AI world, we had maps. If we wanted to go someplace new, we'd have to go look at a map and connect all the roads to make sure that the road we were on was going to connect to the destination that we wanted to go to, right? It's the way the maps work. It's no big surprise. I remember when GPS came out and that started to shift. I mean, I also remember when MapQuest came out and you had to print the instructions, and so many times my wife and I getting in a fight because I'd print the instructions and then we'd take a different turn and then we would not be on the instructions. They would be completely useless. I wouldn't have brought a map and it would just be a big train wreck. Just those days existed. We're living in some of that right now, maybe. But the technology advanced to a level where you didn't need to connect the dots yourself. You didn't need to look at a map. And in fact, in some ways, looking at a map beforehand would work against you because you might pick a route that had a different starting point than where you were when you actually started the trip. And then you'd have to go and route to that originating point and then go from there, right? It's a lot faster to just say, here's where I am now. Here's where I want to go. You pick the route. What AI is doing is it's moving us out of a world of management, which is like a map world, where you have to plan in advance. You have to manage that plan, and whoever executes the best according to that plan as an organization, they're going to win. Like that's the map world that used to be in. What's happening is that AI is now allowing us to be emergent. A GPS is emergent. All you have to do is say, here is where I want to go. And it will figure out where you are, and it'll figure out the best way to get there. And you can put in some parameters. I want to take toll roads, I want to travel back roads, whatever, right? And it'll find the best route based on that. You don't have to look at the map. AI project management, for example, you don't need to know what the plan is beforehand. What you really need to know is, at the end of the project, I want to be here. And AI is getting good enough where you can start on that journey, not knowing that 3 blocks from now, you're going to have to turn right or left or go on the interstate. You don't know before you start what the route is going to look like. And that's okay. Like people have just gotten used to that in GPS because they know that GPS will figure it out better than they will, right? That's what AI is doing right now at an organizational societal level. It is now allowing us to say, regardless of where we were beforehand, we're now at this point in a project, we have this as the exit that we want for this project. We want to get to that endpoint, and AI can help figure out that map. What does this look like? Grant management. What you used to do is you used to go and find all the grants, and then you research every one. You'd write a bunch of letters of interest, all that kind of stuff. What AI is allowing you to do now is to go in and use something like deep research to research these grants and to use all of the previous grants that you've written in the past to create the context for that deep research. So you're now using what you've done in the past as context for deep research to look at this specific grant and what you've done in the past and some of your program data and give you advice on how aligned this grant is with where you're going, what you're doing, what your program is, all of that. That is a different approach than creating a big criteria list and all of that. You basically ask AI to write its own rubric, and then every time you run a grant through this process, you can ask it to use that rubric and then start comparing those grants to each other. That's what I mean by emergent. It allows you to take steps as you're going forward rather than knowing all the steps before you start. That's going to start happening everywhere in society, all sorts of places where it used to be that you had to know start to finish what every step of the process was going to be. Now you need to know where you're at, where you want to go, and you may want to know a timeline, and you're increasingly going to be able to ask AI, hey, help chart the course to help us figure out what all these are to get us from here to there. Help us to write some agents so that at these key decision points, we're giving you this context we've collected. You're helping us figure out, are we taking a right turn or a left turn? And that's coming from agentic advice that you're giving through context to an AI. That does not mean AI is taking over your thinking system. That's not to say that AI is going to start doing cognition for you. I don't see that ever happening. I don't see AI taking over our thinking or our thinking withering and dying because AI can handle some of the logistical hard points about decision making. I don't think that's the way that it works. What AI can do is put together a bunch of those pieces that are a real pain in the butt to put together. And if you take your time to write a good process or a good aid for that decision, it can run that part of the process for you, save you not just a lot of time, but create consistency for you that would be impossible to create without that. That's more of what we're going to see in the next few years with AI. It's partnership in helping with alignment and making those kinds of decisions. At a societal level, what do I think is going to happen with AI? Unfortunately, they're going to weaponize it. We are in an arms race with other countries. I wish for once we would say, look at this amazing technology. How can we use this technology to create as much good in the world as we can? And that is happening. That's why I work in the social impact space. That is the place that those questions are getting asked of AI. But across the hall or across the country or across the street, somewhere else, people are asking, how do we kill other people? How do we create power positions for ourselves? How do we create world dominance with, and getting AI to help with those? I don't love that. I wish it weren't the case. I wish that's not what AI was going to be used for, but like every good invention that's ever come along, it is going to be used in good and bad ways. And when it comes to weaponizing something like AI, that's a harmful use of it. I'm not happy that we're going to be doing that, but I'm not naive enough to think that we're not going to be doing that either. So should you use AI? Like if it's creating this kind of problems, should that be something you use? It's kind of like asking, back in the, 2003, 2004 era, should we use the internet? Or even before that, should we use writing? Or before that, should we use money? Or the these societal inventions are so large, they're not good or bad. They're good and bad. It's important to start looking at it that way, to think about what competencies you want to invest in for your own skill building. One of those competencies is advocacy for places where AI is going to create negative impacts in the world. That is what we can do. We can advocate for change. That's really important. That's not a throwaway line. I don't think abstaining from AI will actually stop those negative impacts from happening. People just don't have enough power. And if people believe that by not participating in AI, they can create less harm in the world, I understand that from a values perspective. And if that's an ethical choice that people are making, I am completely behind that 100%. But to the extent that people believe that's actually going to make a difference in the world, that is a cognitive bias called delusion of control. And delusion of control is dangerous in situations like these. It's just as dangerous as limiting beliefs. We need to actually be thinking about where do we have control, where do we not have control, and how do we use the tools at hand to create the best benefits in using AI, minimize any of the harms through responsible use of AI, and then mitigate the negative impacts of AI with advocacy and create as much positive in the world as we can with the positive impacts of AI through things like frameworks and industry benchmarks and regulation, which I wish we would do more of. If you want to see what this looks like, go check out what Fundraising AI did with their framework. This came out in 2023. It is an impressive piece of work given how early this launched, and it has made a huge impact in the way that the fundraising side of social impact understands the nature of using AI. It's 12 elements to it. It is really well thought through. Nathan Chappell is the driving force behind it. If you're not watching or following Nathan Chappell, absolutely do it. Great guy and really good work. That's what that looks like, both for advocacy and for maximizing the beneficial impacts of AI in the world. And also to just know, what does responsible use look like? What does beneficial use look like? Okay, so I hope that that's helpful in where AI is going to go in the next few years. I can tell you one thing for sure. In the next 3 years, AI is not going away. It is here to stay. It is already such an integral part of the way that we are using and doing technology. It will not be going away. My name is Tim Lockey, and I'm the CEO of the Human Stack. Check out the AI Club that we're launching. Would love to have you join that. If you care about AI, if you're thinking about these things, if you are around the social impact space and nonprofits and use AI, reach out. Would love to meet you.